Welcome to The Backstory, a podcast from the North Dakota News Cooperative that takes an in-depth look at the stories we're reporting for you. I'm Sabrina Halvorson, CEO of the North Dakota News Cooperative. Joining me is Michael Standaert, our lead reporter. The story we wanted to talk about today is headlined "Proposed VA Staffing Cuts Have Local Veterans Worried." And Michael, you talked with quite a few local veterans about this, and actually you and I both have. I talked with them off the record, of course, with you being the reporter, but we have both been hearing from local veterans who are concerned about cuts. What are some of the things that you heard when you were researching this article?
Yeah, I get it with a lot of these stories recently. I've seen national coverage on it, but I hadn't really seen much coverage from inside North Dakota. So thought I would check around with veterans and see what their concerns are. The potential of staffing cuts of 72,000. The initial idea was possibly 83,000, but the VA Secretary Doug Collins had later said it was about 72,000 that's coming up in the next few months. So the concerns are, even if these positions are administrative staff and this sort of thing, that could potentially lead to longer wait times and erode care. It's concerns about calling in about prescriptions or calling in about appointments and getting to those appointments, because over the last decade or so, there's been tremendous progress with the VA of providing care for veterans. And a lot of veterans have become used to that, and they don't really want to go back to what it was a decade and a half ago, or be pushed to community care where wait times just keep increasing as well.
That was a concern that we read a lot about in the article, was the wait times. Now, one thing about North Dakota, I will say that our healthcare wait times tend to be very low when compared to the rest of the nation. When you were gathering information from the VA, have you seen anything that showed the VA was concerned about wait times and things like that?
So the VA does publish under law, they have to publish the wait times at all their facilities across the country. So I was looking around at Bismarck and Fargo, and for a cardiology appointment, it's about 4 to 8 days. And then nationally, I was trying to figure out what the wait times were for North Dakota. It was hard to find that information. So I looked at national data. It was about 26 days for the same type of appointment. Yeah, a couple of the veterans I spoke with had been exposed to Agent Orange, one in Korea. He served right next to the DMZ, the demilitarized zone there. And another was in Thailand, both during the Vietnam era. And this PACT Act that came into place in 2022 really helped to increase the care and coverage for those people that weren't covered before for exposure to burn pits and Agent Orange and other toxic substances. I think there had been people covered before directly in Vietnam, but not some of the people that were in places where they hadn't really declared whether they used it or not. These people had been allowed to have care at the VA later under this PACT Act. So most of the veterans I spoke with are very happy about the care they receive with the VA. Many of them also receive community care. It depends on what's going on with their situation. And they say the wait times are longer for things they have to go to at community care. And they feel treated very well at the VA clinics. They feel it's personalized. They feel it's veteran informed care. So the people know that they're veterans and they know some of their background. And if they've been in there several times, they have a good understanding of what they've been through. With mental health care, wait times around the country can be quite long too. And mental health care within the military community, especially if they've served in a combat zone or some other situation like that, can be a bit different than what you're getting from community-based care, where they're primarily treating maybe addiction or some other issues like that. So the therapists and people they work with are especially attuned to their PTSD things, and even someone mentioned the military sexual trauma issues from their service time. So if those staff cuts go through, they say that it's not going to affect care, but I think a lot of the veterans don't really buy that. They think you can't cut that many people without it affecting care. We'll see. It remains to be seen whether they can pull it off.
I tend to be a logical thinker. And to me, when you're talking about cutting 72,000 jobs, there's no way that's not going to affect care in some manner. Even if we're talking about administrative jobs, people who are in offices somewhere off-site handling paperwork, those things take time, and the longer it takes, the longer these veterans are going to have to wait for care. That, to me, is the logical succession of events after these cuts. But I want to focus more on what you were hearing and research that you did. I know that the VA has not given a lot of information out on specifics, and that had to have made your job harder.
Yeah, I tried to reach out to some VA offices, and I spoke with the somebody with Veterans of Foreign Wars and some of these other groups that are associated with veterans, and they didn't really seem to want to say much at the moment because it is all speculative. The speculation is that huge amount of job cuts will impact veterans.
That's North Dakota News Cooperative reporter Michael Standaert on his latest article, Proposed VA Staffing Cuts Have Local Veterans Worried. You can read that story on our website at newscoopnd.org or in one of our local newspaper partners. For the North Dakota News Cooperative, I'm Sabrina Halvorson. This has been The Backstory.